Hello, my friends. I am excited to talk really quick about some safety things for the art room today. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah Krajewski. I am a writer, content specialist for the Art of Education University, as well as an elementary art educator. So, give me like a little shout out wave or an emoji of how you feel as you're entering the chat today. You can also feel free to drop in what your current status is with teaching, as far as, are you back in your classroom? Are you a hybrid combination? Are you in person? What does that look like? I'd love to hear a little bit more about where everyone is at as far as our kind of our community of listeners. So, a little bit about me. I'm back in my classroom. We're doing kind of a mix. I teach in Wisconsin, and there's a mandate in my county for grades 3 through 12 to be virtual. So that's what we will be doing there. And then I will be teaching on a cart for my little ones. So we are kind of in the process of getting all that organized, and I'm excited to tell you about a few things that will be on the way to help you with some art on a cart things, as well as just literally keeping sane. So I see a lot of friends that are virtual, remote. In fact, it looks like pretty much everyone that responded is virtual, which I think is awesome. And hopefully these will be helpful tips for you, especially if you eventually will be going back in person. But those mask wearing kind of safety procedures and how to set up your classroom, and all of those things about how to keep yourself and your students safe, it's always going to be something that's going to be helpful. So I wanted to give you a little bit of kind of like a quick recap about one of my articles that came out today, which is all about masks. And it's like 10 things you got to know. Maybe you already know them, but I had an interesting time researching a little bit about parts of that, and I wanted to share some of that information with you. Looks like we haven't gone back. Supposed to be hybrid, but there's a board meeting tonight that we might go virtual. So good luck with that. I know there are a lot of like 11th hour decisions happening, and I think, as we all know, we're learning more and more how to be flexible and patient and work through all of those tricky times when we want answers, but we just don't have them. And my quick plug to just remind you, especially those administrators and the people that are trying to make those decisions for you and your community, as much as possible, try to be understanding and know that hopefully things are not ill-intentioned, but that everyone is really just trying their best. So make sure you are staying as positive as possible, finding that that space where you can help be supported. I see Megan, so many last minute plans. Yes, it's like you think you have it all figured out, and it's like, nope. I was chatting with some of my coworkers today, and they were reminding me they're still getting students on their list, and we're still getting our class list not finalized, and there's just a lot up in the air. So hopefully we can lean on each other to sort of help be as strong as possible. So I am going to go over really quick 10 simple things about masks and what you can remember to be really safe with masks, as well as a couple other quick safety tips that I really loved from Nick Gale's article, which came out recently. So as far as the masks are concerned, here's a couple things that I wrote in the article, which we will link to after this, but also I found to be like super simple, quick ways to just remind yourself that we have a little bit more control than you think. So as far as masks, when or if you go back in person with your students, or if you're virtual, I would suggest just simply explaining the importance of masks. Sometimes, like, we just do things and people don't necessarily know why, especially those little elementary students, and they may not completely understand, especially if we don't know what kind of explanation was given at home. Remind them that it's important because of literally the spit particles coming out of our mouth. And in the article that I have created, there is a very sort of silly but also accurate video that was like a TikTok video made by Bill Nye, and I just thought it was like perfect because he's like, I don't want your spit particles, but it was really helpful to see, and maybe the kids would like that reminder instead of just like, hey, we can't see the virus, we can't see the spit, but we know that this mask is going to be helpful to protect us. Just like we do in our art room, we love to explain the reason we do something and kind of the meaning behind it, which is the same for masks. Okay, so can't see something, it makes it harder to understand, which is why explaining it is going to be super duper helpful. The second one I wanted to remind you of, the second tip for masks, is to make sure you're maintaining the integrity of your mask. So of course, super fun to add like amazing details, little jewels and little craziness to your mask, but make sure that it is still functional. So if you're going to be dazzled or something, make sure you're not punching holes in there. If you're doing things with your kiddos, make sure you're using fabric safe materials so that you can actually maintain the safety of your mask as well. We're thinking about at school, I have a student teacher this year, and we were brainstorming how to make like really amazing accessories, like, you know, those beaded chains on a mask, or on like eyeglass holders. Like, anybody else want to make some super amazing like beaded mask accessories? I think that'd be really awesome. I know, but some people have really jazzed up their masks, and I think that would be really cool. So maintaining the integrity. Also, just modeling best mask wearing practices. So this is tip number 3. Again, whenever we do something in the art room, we usually model that behavior for our students. So what we expect them to do is going to be how we model it. So if we kind of got like a mask hanging off the side, or we're being a little silly or grumpy about having to wear a mask, those students will pick up on our energy and our attitude. So being positive, giving students compliments on how awesome they look in their masks, reminding them and advocating for the fact that when they're wearing it the right way, they're doing a great job, especially at that younger level. I know it's going to be really important to have that positive attitude and maintain a strong atmosphere for our students so that they know we can do it, we feel strong, we know it's okay, and we know the importance of it, and then kind of showing our students the right way to do that too. Okay, tip number 4, ensure your mask is comfortable for the whole day. So I was obviously wearing a mask at school today, took it off for lunch to eat, put it back on, and I was like, oh, I'm so hot. I just wanted like a new fresh mask. So I'm gonna probably pack a couple masks so that I can always have a new fresh one. And of course, making sure that you are washing the masks and keeping them super clean so that you can make sure your face and skin stays healthy, as well as the actual use of the mask, making sure it stays safe and clean. So ensuring that it's comfortable, making sure maybe you need a couple extra packs, or keeping some at school too. Okay, number 5, this is an important one. Hand raising and eye contact is super important. So I'm picturing, like, drop in the comments if you're a little nervous about this, but I'm picturing like walking in. Keep in mind, I'm art on a cart, so I'm gonna like walk into this classroom and see a bunch of new kindergarten half faces and be like, cool, I don't know who you are. So I'm like nervous about identifying which students are which. So it's going to be incredibly important that we teach our students and model to our students the right way to maintain eye contact, what's a great way to raise your hand, how are you going to identify those students, and perhaps even doing something fun, like maybe having a lanyard with their picture on it, or a button, or a cool name tag, or something to help you know which student is which. So knowing that important communication skills are really useful while using masks, and making sure you can identify your students. So anybody agree with the little nervousness about identifying the students? I don't think I'm the only one there. Okay, number 6. This one is important. And this is something that I've always been a little bit nervous about. And if you saw my chat with Jessica Balsley last week, we chatted just a little bit about anxiety. And last week we talked about how you can identify and use and kind of like put your energy towards the right decision to make choices on how to be a leader. So your energy is your mental energy, your emotional energy, and your physical energy. And I was a little nervous. I had to I kind of modeled what one of the handouts was. I was a little nervous about my physical energy with like the ability to endure a mask all day. Like a little bit nervous about mask anxiety. That's like a real thing, right? We're feeling a little bit like harder to breathe. Maybe it's a little bit warm. So I was feeling nervous about being anxious in my mask all day. And then kind of just identifying how else I felt, right? So number 6 is my tip for mask anxiety. And here's what I discovered that was like kind of a game changer. So did you know that when you breathe in through your nose, that's your natural way to breathe, right? You should be able, in fact, I probably shouldn't move my shoulders as much. Doing that diaphragm breathing is the strongest way to breathe. But when you breathe in through your mouth, after you breathe in through your mouth for an extended period of time, your fight or flight response is actually activated because it kind of like gives less oxygen to your brain. And again, in that article that I've linked a really great explanation video for why that fight or flight is is activated. So what I'm trying to tell you is when you have your mask on, it's incredibly important that you keep your mouth relaxed and closed, breathe in through your nose and get that nice deep breath from your diaphragm, and then release through your mouth or through your nose as well. Now, I know as you're talking and as you're teaching, that can be kind of tricky. And for someone like me who talks 1,000 miles a minute, it's going to be even trickier because I have to remind myself to breathe in. But I wanted to just put that little nugget in your brain to remember, how are you breathing and how is maybe that adding to either your exhaustion, your anxiety, or your just kind of like your happiness in wearing a mask. So remember, breathing through your nose is the best way to do it, and keeping that strong belly breath so that you can have a really calm breathing technique. Okay. All right. So the next one was kind of similar to what I talked about before. And number 7 reminds us that new students are hard to recognize with masks. So if you've got like a bunch of new kiddos that have moved into your district, perhaps you have like, maybe you only teach certain grades and newer students are coming up to those new grades, it's going to be hard to recognize. So that's where I mentioned earlier, if you are able to get like a super cool button maker and make buttons of students' faces or have them decorate their name tag somehow, that's going to be one of our first projects, especially for our kindergarten students, because I don't know a lot of them, right? I did teach some 4K students, but a lot of them aren't the same, or there might be new students that have moved into the district. And as we know, as art educators, one of our main jobs is just to support our students. I shouldn't say just to support, is literally to support our students emotionally, mentally, and of course artistically. So that's why it's important that we can connect with our students and say, hey, look, I'm Mrs. K, I have a face too. Look, there's my smiling face on my button. You can't see it because of my mask, but I'm happy to see you, and here's how you can tell if you want to know what I look like, right? So really trying to find some resources or some outlets to make sure we're able to support our students and show them how much we care. Okay, number 8, we're almost done with our list of 10 for masks. This one is kind of a reminder about how to best practice, how to kind of create best practice with wearing a mask and teaching demos. So my number 8 tip was to consider flipping your classroom with teacher demo videos. So again, I talk super fast. I sometimes get anxious in my mask, and I want to alleviate that by filming my demo videos beforehand, similar to how I was doing with virtual learning before. And I'm going to use those demo videos to then play in my classroom when I push in an art on a cart, or when eventually I can be in my own classroom again. And that way my students can see my bright shining face. They can see all of the expressions that I have. They can see some really easy demonstrations. They can see things on a bigger scale. And there are so many benefits from flipping your classroom to be more video led at the beginning, and that way your students can then create their projects or whatever after already seeing a video. So that's another tip, is if you're nervous about being in a mask and demoing in a mask, or having kids gather around you, try flipping your classroom, create a very quick demo video, and then play that at the beginning of class. Okay, 2 more. Number 9 is talk to your district about scheduled mask breaks. Again, there's lots of ways to potentially do this, but perhaps if your classroom is working quietly, perhaps you have the ability to say, all right, the first 5 minutes is we always do first 5 is what we call it, first 5 mindful minutes. So in the art room, we turn off we turn on the music, we turn on a little like glitter jar that's got a 5-minute countdown in it, and for the first 5 minutes, we just listen to the music, and we create, and we work. So that's during work time. Now, if students aren't talking, there's no spit that supposedly is supposed to be expelled into the air. So hypothetically, if we all agree the safe way to do it, perhaps you can have a mask break, and of course make sure you're talking to your district too, but see if maybe you can integrate some mask breaks so you can see your kiddos' smiling faces, so you can see that everybody is doing things safely and we're caring for each other, but of course doing it in a kind and respectful way. So that is just another hint, is maybe you can do some sort of like quiet, mindful working, and the trade-off is, hey, if y'all are quiet, you get to take your masks off for a little bit, but that means you can't say a word. And if you need to say something, you gotta raise your hand and put your mask back on. So something to consider there. And then finally, the 10th tip is to create some awesome lessons about masks. So the go-to feeling is, of course, like, mask wearers are superheroes. We are helping to kind of take care of each other. It's like our act of kindness to wear a mask, and not just to protect ourselves, but to protect each other. And how important that is in reminding our students that we are superheroes by doing the right thing and being proud to wear a mask, and it means we get to see each other either in person or online or hybrid or whatever that looks like. So those are my 10 tips about masks, and hopefully a few of those stuck out to you as well. Now, a couple other really quick things before we go. So if anybody has any quick questions about masks, feel free to drop those into the chat, and I will of course be linking the article right after this, so you can kind of check out those 10, maybe see a couple other images or something that can help remind you about some other tips as well. So one other little list of things I wanted to hopefully ease your mind a little bit about is the safety reminders about some new things that might be a little bit different. I see Ellie with the new student thing. You can do a hello video. That's what some teacher did in the high school. I love that, Ellie. Perfect. So yeah, basically that's kind of my plan, is that I'm gonna have an intro video, which I probably would do every other year anyways, but especially important this year for all of my new students, all of my young students and returning students to see my face again and say, hey, Mrs. K is here, she's healthy, she's smiling, she's good, right? And give them that kind of sense of calm a little bit too. So here are some safety reminders for you. A lot of them were super helpful, again, from Nick Gale's article about ways to stay safe in the art room, but most of them are really throughout your entire school, how you can be safe. But some of them are obviously very specific to art educators. So, couple quick tips. And if you think of a tip that I haven't shared, feel free to drop that in the chat too, because I would love to kind of use this also as a sounding board for people that are, we're always just a community of art educators together that are trying to support each other. So, quick tips, super speed, here we go. First one is a dirty bin, and this is for supplies. Now, I, again, am going to be art on a cart, so after students use a supply that then we need to sanitize, throw it in a bin. Now, you've seen maybe the Instagram live chat that I had with Lindsay Moss, who is an amazing seasoned art educator and did teach art on a cart for a couple years, and we talked a lot about tips for teaching on a cart. And you can go back and rewatch that Instagram live if you would like, saved in the Art of Ed Instagram. But a couple things that stuck out to me when she was talking about it were just like a dirty bin. So instead of trying to remember what you need to clean, literally just put the messy tools in a bin. You could even close it off and just keep it still for a few days if you want to, or just sanitize it. So that dirty bin can be really helpful as well. The second thing that might be a kind of a good hint is to, I know it seems silly, but like hold materials with a tissue, right? So if it's something that people are going to share, you can just like hold it that way, and then you can like use it, especially if it's some sort of pastel or something, they could use it to smooth out the material anyways. In fact, tell me if I'm wrong, do y'all have some of those students sometimes that like the feeling makes them like the feeling of soft pastels, or maybe you're the same way, where something like feels kind of gives you spine tingles? So that is a similar feeling to like how you might use a pastel. So the tissue might help with that feeling, and it might help with keeping things sanitized. Okay, couple other special hints on how to make things helpful for passing things out. Simple bags, simple bins for easy distribution. Obviously, we all know, those of us especially that are in your classroom already, know that things are probably going to need to stay to each individual student. So there's not as much collaborative sharing of supplies as there were in the past, at least not for right now. So something as simple as bags, folders, bins, little tiny cups, saving like reusable plastic cups or things that you can put materials in. It's going to be a way to kind of just keep stuff portioned by student instead of trying to like set things out on some floppy paper towel, right? So really utilizing those strategies to organize and separate things. Okay, And then, of course, we talked about how social distancing is certainly something to consider if you're in your classroom. Keeping it as simple as move a carpet out of the way, move some desks to the walls, and then just spread your tables out amongst the space. Now, you may or may not have exactly 6 feet, but it can be super useful to just take a step back from your classroom and say, oh, you know what? I actually have more space than I think. I'm not going to need my demonstration table, if that's something you usually do, because that's not conducive to distancing. So I can move that to the wall. I'm not going to have a carpet because all my kiddos would be sitting too close to each other, so I could move that. So really remember to be kind of a problem solver and move those spaces away from each other so that you can properly social distance your students if you are able to be within your art room. Okay, a couple other quick hints. One that I really loved, Nick reminded us of, was just those like a list of quick touch points. So things that get touched often. Hopefully you have an amazing custodial staff that's going to be coming in to clean things, but that may not happen during the day, or you never know how often it happens. So things that you know get touched a lot, whether it's by you or by students, make a quick list, and then at the end of the day, as you're turning off your lights, which that's probably a touch point, as you're turning off your lights, then you can say, all right, did I quick sanitize and wipe down faucets, computer mouse, and light switch, right? And that can be your like quick check at the end of the day, are those little touch points. You can also, as a hint, if you are social distancing within your classroom, things that students would typically get up to use, can you set those at their tables? Again, hopefully you're thinking a little bit about, okay, what do my kids actually need? What would they be moving around for? But something that I don't always think about is like Kleenexes, if they need to get up to blow their nose, or do they need to get up to sharpen a pencil, or maybe get a paper towel to wipe up a mess. So can you make a little pod of materials that are sort of things that would typically be within the art room, but that you can move towards their table spots as well. Let's see. A couple other hints. Next one is to change your clothes right away when you get home. Now, I feel like, again, tell me if y'all relate to this feeling, but you know how when you're like wearing uncomfortable shoes, or you've got like a tie on, or you've got something kind of like fancy that's sort of uncomfortable, like a mask, perhaps, you are like excited to take it off. That's the same feeling for like what you wear at school. If you've got kiddos that are around you all day, just go ahead and keep it in your routine to say, I'm going to just switch into my nighttime clothes right when I get home from school. So that might be something like literally just like, I'm going to set out some sweatpants by my door, and that means I'm happy and home and safe and comfy. So you can be a little bit silly with it, but that way you know your clothes from the day that were around a lot of people, perhaps have a little more germs on them than usual, are just going to be go right into the laundry. And then three more really quick tips. Next one is about sanitizing your phone screen. This is something I often forget, but is like the thing I touch the most, right? Is like your phone screen with your messy hands, you touch it all the time. So make sure that as you are thinking about those key touch points, your phone is probably one of them. So maybe that's like your routine when you come home, slip your shoes off or do what you're gonna do, and then you can just wipe down your phone and you feel like it's clean for the night. That might be a good one because that's probably a pretty germ-heavy piece of material that you have. Okay, 2 more things. The next one, subplans. If you can have at least one makeup of subplans or one idea for subplans or 2 figured out, that might be helpful for your own mental health to know that if you happen to get sick or just need a day, planned or unplanned, that you already have a subplan in place. Now, as many of us went virtual a while ago, or really all of us, there might be some content that you've already created that you could use for a subplan, or something that you could easily make or reference or borrow from another amazing art educator that you can use as a subplan without having to create something massive on your own. So just keep it simple, but keep those little subplan ideas in your brain so it won't be so tricky when you do need to find those subplans. Let's see. Steph says definitely helps define home and workspaces. Yes. And one of my favorite tips, which I'm going to tell you in a second, is all about defining that separation, which is incredibly important. Okay. The last one really quick that was on my list besides having subplans ready was about music and calming music. So I actually created, I have kind of like a little playlist of different music pieces that I love to play in my classroom, but since I'll be art on a cart, as Lindsay and I chatted about before, we are going to do like an entry song. So whenever I enter the art room, it's like art time, and here's the song that we're gonna play. So she suggested Crayola Doesn't Have a Color for Your Eyes, which you can find on YouTube, and it's beautiful, and find some other fun songs that can be like, this is our 2-minute entrance song. We can kind of like get up and groove and stretch out a little bit in our own space for art on a cart, or of course in your own classroom too. So anyways, music can be a great way to either have a more like calming classroom for your students, or a space for you to just like enter the classroom and do kind of a fun entrance song. So that's something to think about too. Okay, so let's see. Steph was saying that separation between home and work is really important. And as always, our mental health is the number one priority. You've heard it before. Putting on that mask yourself first, like metaphorically and realistically too, putting on that mask first is going to be incredibly important to make sure you can show up for your kids. So if you don't feel mentally strong, or at least like mentally adequate, I feel like I need a shirt that says mentally adequate. But if you don't feel like prepared to at least kind of hold your own, it's going to be really hard for you to be there in addition to yourself, but for your kids too. So that's why it's really important to keep those scary, mentally draining places a little bit separate so you can be strong and take a break, right? Give yourself that a little bit of a break. So the biggest thing that I did today, and I intend to continue, hopefully through the school year, maybe it'll be a tradition that I start forever, but I am a huge advocate for mental health and being able to talk about that, and if at all possible, trying to be as positive as you can be. Yes, it's hard. Yes, we're struggling, but it hurts to be negative. So let's try, if possible, to feel a little bit better and to feel a little bit more positive and support each other. So here's what my plan is, and hopefully you might do the same thing. Do I have any friends in this chat right now that talk to themselves? I'll wait. Maybe you won't answer, and that's fine. But what I did today, literally, and what I plan to do is, as I'm leaving the parking lot, as I'm exiting the parking lot of my school, and we had teacher meetings today, so we've got a week of teacher meetings in preparation for next week with our students. And as I'm leaving, thank you, my talk to their selfers. I appreciate you so much. Okay, now you're responding. I feel a little less worried. But Margaret, exactly what you're saying is completely true. So what I did today when I left my school was I out loud listed, I said a little mantra that I have to myself about how I'm strong, I'm calm, I am a shoreless lake of peace. We talked about my little mantra that I had when I was way younger and how it helps reduce my anxiety. I also listed out loud, like today I was really excited to see some of my coworkers I haven't seen in a long time. Today I got to see my colorful art room again, and that made me really happy. I got to have a special lunch that was catered by one of our local shops. So literally just listing gratitude, and again, out loud, makes you intentionally realize that not everything is terrible. So I would encourage you as much as possible to try, even if it feels like a silly little tradition, you by yourself. So I'm telling you because I don't have any shame, but y'all can do this and you don't even need to tell me, but just literally out loud, say it in your car and say, this thing was good today. Oh man, I had a little bit of trouble with this, but I was able to persevere. I'm really proud of myself for doing this. Here's my little mantra. Let's make it a good night. I'm going to leave that behind me at school, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to enjoy XYZ. Okay. So that's something I'm really excited about. It feels simple, might feel silly, but who cares? And hopefully it will help you a little bit. So I see Steph there saying, remember, if you force yourself to smile, it will lift your spirits. Even a little lift can go a long way. I love that. And Courtney, focus on the things that go right. You're right. And this is another little hint too, is usually I, like in a typical school year, when I have my lesson planner open, you know how, especially at the elementary level, like kids just say really funny, weird things. Like they just say stuff and you're like, that's amazing. Like, that's the funniest little thing that they've ever said. I would always just scribble that inside my planner. So as I would look through my planner, I would have like this joke from this kid, and I'd have this funny thing they said this time, and this like funny compliment they told me where I look like a pink ice cream cone this day. So I would just have all of those funny things in my planner, so my planner became happy. And I'm intending to do something similar to that, where either each day or sometimes if I can't write it down, that's why I'm hoping the like exiting the parking lot out loud gratitude list will help, because it's a little less formal and structured than having to write something down and being like, I forgot to write it down. So remembering to, as much as possible, focus on those things that go right, focus on the things that you can control, and leaning on each other to help support you. So I am so thankful all of you joined me for the chat today. Hopefully a few of those tips were helpful. I know I talk a million miles an hour, but I just have so much to share with you. And I'm really thankful that we can help support each other as our educators and teachers and humans in a really weird time. So feel free to message the Art of Ed on Instagram if you have any questions regarding the Instagram chat. And yes, Steph, I will of course say all of these Instagram lives are always saved to the Art of Ed page. So if you go to the Art of Ed Instagram, and I think they're also posted on usually our Facebook and YouTube channel and stuff too as well. So yes, all of you, this will be saved and posted on our IGTV on Instagram, as well as our YouTube and Facebook. So I hope you guys have a really great day, and I will see you next week for another chat. So feel free to message here, or you can always message me on my personal Instagram at ArtroomGlitterFairy. And I will see you guys later. Have an excellent day.